When installing underground power and fuel lines, maintaining adequate clearance is crucial for safety and preventing potential hazards. In the United States, according to the National Electrical Code, a minimum horizontal separation of 12 inches, or 305 millimeters, is required between the power line and the fuel line. Additionally, a vertical separation of 18 inches, or 457 millimeters, must be maintained between the top of the fuel line and the bottom of the power line. The Canadian Electrical Code mirrors these requirements, stipulating the same 12-inch horizontal and 18-inch vertical separations. However, it's important to understand that minimum clearance requirements can vary depending on the specific jurisdiction. Always consult with local building codes and authorities to determine the exact requirements for area. Failing to comply with these regulations can lead to serious consequences, including electrical hazards, fuel leaks, and potential explosions. To ensure safety and compliance, consider the following general guidelines. Firstly, install power lines and fuel lines in separate trenches or conduits whenever possible. This physical separation provides an additional layer of protection and reduces the risk of interaction between the two systems. Secondly, if it is necessary to cross power lines and fuel lines, do so at right angles. This minimizes the length of parallel runs and reduces the potential for inductive interference or arcing. Thirdly, use adequate trench backfill material to provide proper support and protection for both lines. The backfill material should be free of sharp objects that could damage the lines and should be compacted to prevent settling. Fourthly, shield power lines and fuel lines from physical damage, moisture, and environmental hazards. This may involve using conduit, protective sleeves, or other appropriate measures. Furthermore, several additional considerations can influence clearance requirements. Firstly, the type of fuel being transported, such as gasoline or diesel, can affect the required separation distance. More volatile fuels may necessitate greater clearances. Secondly, the voltage of the power line is a significant factor. Higher voltage lines generally require greater clearances to mitigate the risk of electrical arcing. Thirdly, always consult with qualified professionals, such as engineers, electricians, and plumbing contractors, to ensure proper design and installation of underground power and fuel lines. These experts can assess site-specific conditions and recommend appropriate clearance distances and installation techniques. Fourthly, before digging, contact utility companies to identify and locate any existing underground lines in the area. This is crucial to avoid damaging existing infrastructure and preventing potentially dangerous situations. Installing power and fuel lines in the same trench may be permitted under certain conditions, but it's essential to adhere to strict safety guidelines. Firstly, maintain the required horizontal and vertical clearances between the lines. Secondly, encase the power line in a rigid, non-metallic conduit to provide additional insulation and protection. Thirdly, clearly mark the location of both lines with warning tape or other appropriate methods. The depth of burial for underground power and fuel lines is also regulated by codes and standards. Generally, power lines should be buried deeper than fuel lines to minimize the risk of damage from excavation activities. The specific depth requirements will vary depending on the voltage of the power line and the type of fuel being transported. Always consult with local authorities to determine the appropriate burial depths for location. Proper grounding of underground power lines is essential for safety. The grounding system should be designed to provide a low impedance path for fault currents, minimizing the risk of electric shock. The grounding electrode system should be installed in accordance with the National Electrical Code or the Canadian Electrical Code, as applicable. Regular inspection and maintenance of underground power and fuel lines are crucial for ensuring their continued safe operation. Inspection should be conducted to identify any signs of damage, corrosion, or leaks. Maintenance activities may include repairing damaged sections of pipe, replacing corroded components, and testing the grounding system. The consequences of failing to maintain adequate clearance between underground power and fuel lines can be severe. Electrical arcing can ignite flammable fuels, leading to explosions and fires. Damaged fuel lines can release hazardous substances into the environment, contaminating soil and groundwater. These incidents can result in significant property damage, environmental harm, and potential injuries or fatalities. Therefore, it's imperative to prioritize safety and compliance when installing and maintaining underground power and fuel lines. Always adhere to applicable codes and standards, consult with qualified professionals, and implement appropriate safety measures to minimize the risk of accidents. Remember that these guidelines provide a general overview of minimum clearance requirements. Local codes and regulations may impose more stringent requirements based on specific site conditions and other factors. It's always best to err on the side of caution and consult with local authorities to ensure that your installation meets all applicable requirements. When working with underground power and fuel lines, safety should be the top priority. Always wear appropriate personal protective equipment, such as gloves, safety glasses, and hearing protection. Use caution when digging near underground lines, and never attempt to repair or modify these systems without proper training and authorization. By following these guidelines and prioritizing safety, can help to prevent accidents and ensure the safe and reliable operation of underground power and fuel line systems.